Anthony.
Good morning, Paul. Sorry about that. Anyway,
No,
was there
no.
was there a general announcement we were going to change time? I wonder if I had missed it.
I do not know. I just know as a committee working on the agenda, the president couldn't start right at 9. And so she started at 9:15. So I think that everything got pushed back by 15 minutes. And so instead of starting at 8:45, the agenda shows 9.
Oh, it does now. I bet I missed the last. Is that the most updated agenda?
It was the one that I sent out on Tuesday.
Oh, well, Teresa, we get another, it looks like we get 14 minutes to just for you to get into a Zen moment. I apologize. I think that when I was going to do a save as on mine, it said you already have a copy of this, and I didn't realize it was updated. So yeah, that was my bad. Yeah, sorry about that.
Hey, no worries. Yeah, I was already here and in Zoom already, making sure that everything looked correct. So
okay. What time are you a morning guy, or are you a
it doesn't matter.
My coffee makes me human.
Oh yeah, I down coffee, so I'm like double fisting it this morning. So this is like now, and this is like warm and for later.
Did you actually run the Starbucks for your brew, or is that just a mug?
This is just a mug. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my travel mug is Starbucks branded too, so it's.
Is that your brew? Are you a Starbucks guy?
Usually what's the strongest, the closest and strongest around, but I like Starbucks. And then I got on a Dunkin' Donuts kick. I'm from the Midwest, and so
I love Dunkin' coffee. Oh man, it's good.
Yeah. And I would drink. I lived in Chicago for a few years, and so I would always drink Dunkin' Donuts. Enjoyed that. And then Starbucks, we had one in our Target in our small town, and so that's where I got these two things at. Was actually from there. So yeah, and then we got a Dunkin' Donuts in town, and then it's been back to Dunkin' Donuts.
we had a Dunkin' Donuts in Logan, and they went out of business after like 5 months. So
oh wow.
Yeah, totally sad. Did you all know that you can get a free Krispy Kreme donut every day for the rest of the year if you bring your vaccine card in?
Heard that, yeah.
Is their coffee any good?
I don't remember. I'm sure it's not bad.
That must be why they gave me I went there the other day just to get like 2 donuts because I was just hungry. And so I stopped in the afternoon, and when I went to pay, they were like, it's fine, it's on the house. And I was just like, oh, that's weird. But now I guess if they're giving out free donuts to everybody all year, that makes sense.
Yeah. They didn't make you show your vaccine card?
No. They were just like, they're on the house, you're fine. And I was just like, okay. So
holy cow.
So I don't know, because I don't know if people regularly go in and order a dozen donuts, and so I only wanted 2, and they were just like, that's not even running a credit card for it, worth running a credit card for. But I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, if everything is totally clear on this agenda, I really apologize to bring this in. But anyway, Samantha and Teresa, if you want to practice your speeches, we're listening.
I have mine written down. So like, I don't know. Mine's probably
actually like, here our President Jimenez is coming on board, so I'm going to admit her now.
Oh,
Saying connecting the audio.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question. Since I'm going to be playing a video, which buttons do I need to push to make sure that the listeners have sound?
Whenever you choose share,
Mhm.
you'll have a window pop up, and then in the lower left of that window, you'll have two
Share
small
sound. Okay.
boxes to check.
Yeah, I see it. Okay, so
Uh,
I'll do that.
Okay, yeah, share audio and optimize video, I believe,
And optimize
uh,
for video clip. Okay.
and we
All
should be
right.
good. I tested it the other evening and it worked, and so shouldn't have any trouble.
Okay, so let me try it right now. This is the video. Do you see it?
The slide is just black on our end.
Okay, so it should play in just a second. Okay, here we go. Wait, why is it not playing? Uh-oh, QuickTime not available. I guess QuickTime may be what Zoom uses. And I don't have it. It says QuickTime not available. So will you just be able to play it for me?
Yes, ma'am. Let me.
Oh, okay. All right, so when I get, this is slide number 4 for me. And on
Okay.
my PowerPoint, it plays normally, but now when I play it, let me try it on this, see if it plays. Yeah, it still won't play. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. So is it okay for me just when I get to slide 4 to say, would you please play the video, and then somebody can play it?
Yes, yes, ma'am. I will pull it up in a browser and share it on my end.
Do I just have to stop sharing at that point?
Let's go ahead and do that. I think whenever I share, it will take precedent over your
Okay.
sharing, but just to
Okay.
be safe.
Okay.
Is this the first video of you, your
Yes, there
backstory?
is. Yes, there are 2 videos in the presentation.
Okay. And the Abraham slide is.
Oh,
is
this
soon to
one's
be later.
playing. Do you see that?
No, ma'am.
Oh, hold on. Maybe I stopped. Oh, okay. Maybe I stopped sharing. Let me share again. Hold on. Here you go. I'll turn on my video. So so I will share screen again. Share. And then do you see this?
Yes.
Community here.
Oh, there
Also
it's,
want to make
do you hear it
my
and
mom
see
proud
it?
as well. So
Yes, we
through
do.
the program, my experience has been
So this video has no problem playing.
Correct. Yeah, this one works great.
Oh my gosh. So what is wrong with this one? It's just loading and then it says QuickTime not available. So maybe it's the format of the video itself. Do you think it's just the format of the video itself?
Probably with it being QuickTime. Are you on a PC?
I'm on a PC, I'm on a Surface.
Okay. It's probably
And
tied with the QuickTime and on the PC. I know there's some
okay.
security issues.
So I'm gonna change my whole presentation. I'm gonna move up this video to the beginning. So before I even start, I will have the video played. That way I could just go straight into share screen and not have to go in and out again.
Okay, so I'll play it first on my end and
Yeah,
then
play it at the
you will start.
beginning, then I will share my screen. And then that way I just go through the rest of my presentation, and the second video works well. All right, so I think we're good.
Okay, sounds good. I will pull it up and get
Thank
it
you for
ready.
the tech check.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
Good morning,
Okay.
President.
Hey, good morning, Barney. Is that you?
That is me. How are you?
I am fine. So Paul and I were just doing a tech check,
Okay,
and we sorted it out. So we're gonna
Okay.
begin with the 12-minute video
mhm.
because for some reason I'm unable to play it.
I
And
love
we'll
technology.
just start with that, and then I'll share screen, and then the rest will be me.
Okay,
And I
perfect.
see that people have joined already.
Yeah, Emmy said that you were gonna plan on like 9:10, 9:15 to kind of get started. Is that still true?
I'm ready to start anytime.
Oh, okay.
I'm
was-
here.
Okay.
So
Well, I
whenever-
didn't know if you had to step away for something.
Whenever your people are ready, I'm ready. So
Let me see.
yeah, so now that we've sorted out the video, how many people are we expecting on this call?
We're expecting between 50 and 75, I believe. And so, and we
Okay,
currently
so
have 70.
let me
so-
close my office door. I'll be right back.
Okay,
Barney, should
Yes.
should we move the candidates forum and just do it after President Tamina speaks?
maybe. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, okay.
Everyone has their morning Coke, coffee,
We're
tea,
all- we're
Mountain
all
Dew,
staying
poison.
caffeinated.
Pick your poison. Pick green tea.
How's your week going, President?
Pretty intense.
Is it a busy one this week?
I went to men's soccer last night. and-
Oh, I didn't
was-
check the score. Did we win?
Oh, no, it was
Oh,
terrible.
dang it.
It was a heartbreak because
Oh, no.
we were 0-2, we were 0, and then within 10 minutes, we made 2 goals. So 2-2.
Ah.
And we went into overtime. We were dominating just in terms of having the ball and corner kicks. And then like with 2 minutes left, they got the ball, and it just happened so fast.
Oh, no.
And a fight almost broke out. So it was exciting.
Wow. It gets intense.
I shouldn't call fights exciting. That might be misconstrued.
Well, while we're waiting for a couple more people to join, just so you know, those who are on the call should know that President Tamina is the biggest cheerleader of our athletes at UVU. I believe she carries pom-poms in her purse.
I do. I honestly do. I have them in my car and I have them in my office. Never go anywhere without my green pom-poms. So the audience today, this is all Utah, everyone involved in TRIO in Utah.
Yes, throughout the state of
Okay.
Utah. There may be a
Fantastic.
few others from Paul and Marilyn Thayer may be joining this morning. They are TRIO veterans from Colorado as well, too, that are doing
Oh,
leadership development with us as well. So yeah,
terrific.
but yeah,
Okay.
we got representatives from just about every USHE institution
Okay.
participating today. So yeah,
Okay.
and we are at, what time are we at? 9 o'clock straight up. Well, I want to be mindful of your time, President. So
Okay.
I know you and Paul were talking, I just want to, welcome you and thank you for taking the time to do this. Behind the scenes, this was supposed to happen a year ago, and it was one of the first things we had to cancel. In Vegas, we were on the phone canceling this actual event in Vegas, as well as everything else that was going on a year ago as we stepped into this new pandemic world. So we appreciate your willingness to hold off for a year and join us anyways. For our Utah Aspire Association members, I'm really excited to have President Jimenez here. I'm actually really excited. She is also president of UVU. When she was first, when she was a finalist for the job and she was giving her presentation to the campus, she was the only candidate who remarked upon the dual mission that UVU has and talked about access in a really deeply meaningful way. And for me in the audience, that was very meaningful. And I was, automatically cheering for her out of the three candidates right off.
Thank you, Barney.
I absolutely was. And so, and she has proven since she's taken the reins to stay true to that original thought and that mission of access at UVU, and speaks often about the importance of that at our institution. So I'm excited to have her here. I think her story and her remarks are going to resonate really well with this audience as well. So Paul, I guess you're going to play the video to start?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we'll cue the video and get started with that, and then we'll see you on the other side, everyone.
Yep.
Sounds good. Here we go.
The ocean inspires. It seems to represent life, endless possibilities. It's full of potential. Like the breaks of the ocean waves, sometimes breaks come along in life, and sometimes people make the breaks happen. For Astrid Tuminez, being back in the Philippines, where she grew up, is a reminder of the possibilities and what you can do and what you can be.
My life is a miracle. There's no other way to describe it.
In a little village called Pali, Astrid Tuminez came into the world.
Astrid was very uplifting child because when she was 3 years old, she can really speak. People think that she has been in school, but she did not. And she talks really very nicely and intelligently. She is very uplifting to my friends and neighborhood.
Farming in the rural areas of the Philippines is especially tough. Day after day, through unrelenting humidity, farmers work the fields. And in this growing context for young Astrid, she became rooted in her dreams. The roof of the family hut was made of dried nipa grass, which would often get holes.
It was such a wonderful thing when I realized the holes serve two purposes. Yes, they make me wet and annoyed during the rainy season, but in the dry season, they actually make me see the stars and dream before I go to bed.
When Astrid was still very young, her family moved into Iloilo for more opportunities. This was the only area the family with 7 children could afford. No running water, no electricity, no toilets. Surrounded by violence and concern for personal safety, despite the challenging living conditions, what happened next was a big break for Astrid, along with her sisters.
We were found by the nuns, of course, of Colegio del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús. They were slumming, so to speak.
The school was starting a pilot program to help kids in underprivileged areas become educated. This is Sister Elvira of the Daughters of Charity. She fondly remembers meeting Astrid more than 45 years ago.
We invited them to be scholars in Colegio del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús to give them good foundation and an opportunity to develop their natural intelligence and talents. They are talented, but exceptional, Astrid is.
It's wonderful to kind of walk down these hallways and see the journey now a little bit differently. This school was a magical place because this was a place of discovery, this was a place of learning, this was a place of culture.
The culture and seriousness of the school provided new waters for Astrid to navigate outside the slums. But she was behind. She didn't know how to spell her name, she kept getting zeros on quizzes and thought those were good scores. And she was placed in the last row, last desk, because her skills were so lacking. That's when she made a break happen.
During recess, since I had no money to buy snacks downstairs, I would flee to the library. I read Time magazine. That's how I learned about New York City and the United Nations. And I said that I would work for the United Nations someday and live in New York City. And I would read all the books, all of the Dr. Seuss books, all of the Nancy Drew books, all of the Hardy Boys books. And then I discovered romance novels.
She started the school year ranked as the worst student in the class, last row, last desk, and in that same year, she relentlessly rose through the ranks to become the top student in the class.
But I remember I once had a quarrel with my teacher because we were learning the 10 Commandments, and she kept saying, "Thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not covet thy neighbors." And I said, "Ma'am, you don't say covet. According to the dictionary, it's covet." And she didn't believe me because Filipinos will say covet. And I said, "Ma'am, we have to pronounce it properly. It's covet." And so we had to look up the dictionary, and sure enough, it's covet.
At age 14, Astrid moved to Manila and spent her last year of high school at Union High School of Manila, a Methodist school. She graduated and was accepted on a full government scholarship to attend the University of the Philippines, Diliman, a top-ranked university in the country. There she started to learn Russian. But she set her sights on America, where she knew she could get an even better education. She was accepted into BYU and arrived with an old suitcase and a box of old books. After one semester, she proved herself sufficient to get a full-ride scholarship for the rest of her undergraduate education.
I was a relatively new faculty member at the time, and I was looking for a student to serve as an assistant on a project that I had. And Astrid knocked on the door and came in, and such a little girl, and looked so young, and yet she was able to speak with me in Russian. Soon I came to realize that that wasn't only in Russian. She was brilliant in a whole range of areas. It was a shock to me to see someone who looked that young. I was thinking that she could easily have been possibly in the 7th grade, but to see her be able to perform so well was a real thrill.
After graduating in 3 years with a degree in Russian and international relations, Astrid went to Harvard University on scholarship. There she met her eventual husband, Jeffrey Tolk.
As we stopped to get gas, she got out and started dancing to a Madonna song. I think it was Get Into the Groove or something. I don't know. I thought, wow, this is amazing. I fell in love with her even more when she started doing that. Because your typical Harvard student wouldn't do something like that.
The couple got married just a few days after Astrid earned her master's degree in Soviet studies. That degree took her to Russia.
She met some outstanding Harvard professors that recognized her capabilities. And so when communism fell and Harvard established an initiative to try and promote and strengthen democratic institutions in Russia, Astrid was there.
With this unique international experience, Astrid again charted deep, difficult waters. A PhD at MIT in political science and government.
She taught some undergraduate classes at MIT. She taught a course on communism in Russia. She's always loved teaching. She's one of the best teachers I know.
And some of her favorite teaching happens at home.
Just like seeing where my mom grew up, where she started from, like the slums in the Philippines and her little hut that she had. I guess it kind of made me think about all the things that I take for granted, having been born into a life that's not, in poverty. And it made me appreciate a lot of the things I had even more, and encouraged me to work harder, and so I can achieve my dreams like she did.
Smart, loving, nice, good to have around, and she makes good cake, carrot cake.
After Moscow and MIT, she worked a total of 13 years in New York City for Carnegie Corporation, AIG, and the U.S. Institute of Peace. She and her family also lived in Hong Kong for 3 years. From there, Dr. Tuminez worked for the National University of Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, where she taught more than 2,000 government and business leaders and served as Assistant Dean for Executive Education and then Vice Dean of Research. As Vice Dean, she helps support faculty in getting funding and disseminating their research results.
Dr. Tuminez is amazing because she's able to think of that new knowledge. How can that new knowledge that can be applied across different fields and bring different disciplines together to solve a particular problem or to look at a particular topic from different perspectives. So I think that's very creative because it breaks new ground. She sees academic fields as porous and can be integrated. So I think that's very refreshing.
She left the university to become Microsoft's Regional Director for Corporate, External, and Legal Affairs for Southeast Asia. In this position, she led a team supporting 15 countries.
She's incredibly positive, she's incredibly fun. She takes her job seriously, but she doesn't take herself too seriously. She's still the fun-loving, young Filipino girl that she grew up as. And despite everything, she's able to connect with people, I think, at a very human level. Whether she's talking to a president or a prime minister, or whether she's talking to the lowliest person, she treats everybody with respect and a connection, a human connection, which I think is wonderful to see.
In my mind, the women of Asia today are ready to do more, to be more, and to lead more.
I see her up on that stage talking to people about what she's passionate about. You know, I guess in my mind, TED Talks are these things reserved for these super smart people, like the incredibly advanced, like mathematicians or, you know, yeah, people like that. And then I see my mom there. It's like, whoa. She's up there too, you know, and I'm just proud of her.
I am pleased to tender the nomination of the successor to Matthew S. Holland and a whole pantheon of great leaders that have preceded him to serve as the next president of Utah Valley University, Astrid Tuminez.
As the first woman to become president of Utah Valley University, the people who know President Tuminez best say she's uniquely qualified for the position.
Not just that she's my sister, but I think she did a great job, and I think she is the one for UVU. For everything, like I said, for inspiring the students, for bringing funding, for bringing technology, bringing everything. She is the one.
Well, in my opinion, Astrid is at the right time for UVU or any other university because she has a very deep commitment to education. And she likes the idea of there being educational possibilities across a broad range, including vocational. That appeals to her very much.
I guess what I admire most about her is that she's remained humble throughout this whole, throughout her whole career, and more importantly, she's caring about people who maybe haven't accomplished as much as she has, but people are less fortunate than she is.
In the vast ocean of possibilities and potential at Utah Valley University, President Astrid Tuminez understands that education is the big break in life. It can change your understanding of yourself and show you that your potential is limitless. And no matter your background or circumstance, education frees the human spirit. She's living proof of that.
My hope is that we think of UVU as a magical place where wonderful education can happen and our imaginations can run away with the things we want to do and the things we want to be.
Thank you, Paul. And I will now share my screen. Here we go. All right, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I can't see any of you now because I'm in full presentation mode, but I just want to thank you for sitting through that propaganda film. Every time, I've seen it a few times and I always laugh about, I have 3 children. It always makes me laugh about how my older son's so shocked that his mom was kind of smart and could be on a TED stage. And then my little boy who says, oh yeah, she can make carrot cake. So anyway, the reason that I think this short film about my life is relevant is because of what you do. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So I want to begin by thanking you for waiting for a whole year and being here today. And I want to thank my colleague, Dr. Barney Nai, who was kind enough to invite me to be with this great group of people today in Aspire, and who focus on, TRIO programs that I have actually had to educate myself a little more about it, even though I knew about TRIO, but I wasn't aware of the richness of the range of programs. I'm delighted that there is something that helps that helps so many students. And you know how I got here to where I am today at Utah Valley University. And I was thinking yesterday about what I would say. And I think, I want to say, first of all, that I would have been the perfect candidate for one of the TRIO programs, as I think about what you do to help people from low income families, first generation. So low income, I came from a family of 7 children. My father earned maybe less than $50 a month. I was first generation. Neither of my parents finished college. They had high school. They told me they had high school degrees. We weren't entirely sure, but they definitely they definitely went to high school. And then, of course, there's the rural background as well, because some of the TRIO programs focus on rural students. I'm also delighted to know that you work to support adults who want to return to school, and not only bringing them, but then supporting them in other student categories, students from all these backgrounds, to help them succeed. And then I also realized that you work with veterans. So congratulations to all of you for being part of this amazing program that opens the way for people to succeed and make their way in life and be a little bit stronger, more confident, more skilled to do the things that they deserve to do and want to do. So I want to talk a little bit about what we are doing at UVU to help those categories of people that are also the audience for TRIO. One of the things that really attracted me to UVU, and I had a comfortable life in Singapore, but I decided this was just such an exciting institution. Once I started looking at the website of UVU, that's what really encouraged me to apply for the job. So if you look at the numbers on these slides, I think these are really compelling in the sense that they tell us that this is a unique university. It's big, it has scale, and it's working with all types of human talent. And many of your institutions probably might mirror this. Open admission, many of the students work. We have quite a significant number of students of color. And I am so thrilled that the interventions of the last few years, predating me, kudos and credit to my colleagues like Barney Nai, who was here before I came here, and previous leaders and current leaders who have brought us to these great numbers, improving our retention and completion rate. Because I think the interventions that we do at the end of the day are meaningful, very much to the extent that we can see the impact in the lives of the students that we're trying to help. Today, we know that the landscape of higher education doesn't look so good. There's a lot of failure in the sense that families and individuals are losing belief in the value of higher education. Legislators are cutting budgets. Colleges and universities are all scaling back. Fortunately for us, and I know the majority of you today are coming from Utah, this year our legislature actually increased higher ed budgets by 9% as a whole. And so we're very, very privileged and lucky to be living in a state where individuals and families still value education, and where our lawmakers also believe that this is an endeavor worth supporting. In fact, if you look at economic statistics and studies about the American dream, I like to talk about that. What are the chances of a person born in the lowest quintile of income making it to the highest quintile? Salt Lake City does pretty well. It looks almost as good as Denmark. which is #1 in the world. And one of the variables that they underline is access to higher education, as well as an effective public sector, social capital, and investment in the community. So again, I think let's just pause for a second, those of us who are living and working in the state of Utah, to celebrate the good things that are happening here. So I want to talk about UVU. How do we help students move mountains? And that's sort of the picture that I began the slide presentation with. I climbed Timpanogos with some students last August and got a big toe that became blue and black, but it was totally worth it. And it's a good metaphor because, you know, you're not sprinting to the top of that mountain. You're really making this effort step by step. How do we help our students move mountains? I think the first thing that is so important for UVU is the core values that we espouse. And this is something that I drove this conversation, I drove these words in my first 3 months on the job. The reason for that is I believe that our words matter a lot, especially our core values, because they should guide how we think about why we're at the institution, why we do what we do, and what we hold ourselves accountable for when we make our decisions. So I think our words are important. I'll talk more about these values in a second. And then on top of these values, we have layered our strategic goals for Vision 2030. This was a multi-month exercise driven by the cabinet and with a lot of input across campus, from students, from our employees, from the faculty, from staff, and also eventually approved by our own board of trustees. So you see that our strategic goals for this decade include the completion of meaningful credentials, keeping education accessible, flexible, and affordable, and making ourselves truly relevant to the industry and the community. 76% of our alumni are still in Utah 10 years after graduation, and about 85% are here 1 year out. So back to those values, beginning with exceptional care. We like to say, come as you are, UVU is a place for you. The beginning of a great academic experience begins with feeling that you belong, feeling that you can make friends. Not everybody has to like you because that never happens, but that you can belong, you can find your place. And for the first generation student, this
My
is really
first generation
important.
story is not too complicated or crazy. I grew up kind of marginalized a little bit. I grew up with my mom, just her and I. I wanted to come to UVU because I felt a sense of community here. Also want to make my mom proud as well. So through the LEAD program, my experience has been just really good. They teach you how to manage your time, how to communicate with other people as well. And it's really good to have those tools in your bag. Everyone who has welcomed me to First Generation and to the LEAD program has been really kind. They always make sure that I'm doing well. So it's really nice knowing that I have people behind me that are supporting me. To get a degree would mean a better opportunity in life. Of course, it'll make my mom proud. Any opportunity that you can get just so you can achieve more. And I feel like Utah Valley University definitely gives that to you.
So it was very nice for me to hear that story of Mr. Magina, who is here, face-to-face education and on campus, first generation. But then Barney also shared this story with me about Richard Faircloth, who was an online student at UVU, lives in Atlanta and finished our online program from the School of Aviation, and his spouse reached out to us to about graduation, and they were doing their own mock graduation, but he wanted this cord, the first generation cord. So whatever the experience is, whether you're virtual or here on campus, this experience of caring for you, that you feel cared for so that you can succeed, is a very important part of the ethos of UVU. And I'm really delighted, kudos to my colleagues in student affairs, that they've done terrific work with our first generation students. It's a core audience for TRIO, and we have institutionalized this effort. The work that we're doing actually has been recognized by 2 organizations overseen by NASPA, We are an advisory institution for First Gen Forward, and we've also been selected for the initial First Scholars cohort. All of these recognitions are terrific, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is really what is landing on the ground. And I love that we have institutionalized this effort. So we now have a first generation student success center. And in my first year, literally, I think my first semester, I announced that we were going to raise a 15 million fundraising goal for first generation students to support scholarships, outreach, programming, because we know that the experience can be somewhat different for first gen students. They may not have that deep support from family members who know how to navigate college or graduate school. And then there are some programs that I actually want to mention. The LEAD program, which Mr. Magina mentioned in his video. This is a first year program that's all about leadership development. And it helps students recognize their talents and skills. We use the Gallup Strengths Finder assessment. It provides students with skills and strategies that are vital to success in college, including time management, communication. I remember talking to a student here when I was very new, and she said she almost gave up because there was so much vocabulary she didn't understand. She didn't know what a dean was, for example. And then students who participate in this program are also trained to become peer mentors and student leaders. And there's a whole range of other activities that just help them to connect. We also have student specialists who are staff members who help students navigate what they need to navigate at UVU. And this is very intense work, reaching out to students, phone calls, emails, text messages, and never giving up so that the students can navigate from first year through graduation. Finally, the I Am First student organization that you see here as well. You see this is one that works with the first generation students to connect them with the resources. It's so important that students know that there's a lot of help here for them. So the bottom line for that first value of exceptional care that links to TRIO, that links with underserved students, first generation students, is really like a cocoon of care to give them information, to give them self-confidence so that they can go and do. And this is what brings us to the second core value at UVU, which is exceptional accountability. And to be honest, when I raised the word accountability in my first semester, this was the word that got the greatest pushback. And my attitude was, if accountability is a word that is politically used to bash higher education, let us embrace it and redefine it and own it and make it something that works for us. So with exceptional accountability, we have declared a goal of 45% completion by the year 2025. I saw that UVU hovered at around 36%, which is about maybe 1% higher than average for open admission four-year public institutions. And honestly, it's not good enough. It is not good enough. We are failing too many people. And so the institution has to take responsibility. I think it's important that we obsess about numbers and really ask whether the time, the money, and all the other resources that we have are focused in helping students complete meaningful credentials. We have some great partnerships. You see here MTech, President Clay Christensen, President Waite from Uinta Basin Tech. This is part of that ecosystem for accountability, that when tax funding is spent on the technical colleges, we can help students articulate to academic degrees here at UVU, whatever it is that they choose to do, associate or bachelor's and even more. So, and then this is kind of the journey that helps them move into what the state of Utah calls 4- and 5-star jobs. These are jobs that have great prospects in terms of your earnings and your ability to support yourself, your children, and others around you. I also believe that accountability has to happen at all levels. So in the last freshman convocation, which by the way was virtual, we didn't have this big picnic that I love, and hopefully this August we will have it again. But I said to the freshmen, own your education and ask for help. So when you have programs like Gear Up, TRIO, First Gen, Student Lead, etc., they have to ask for help. And I underlined that asking for help is a sign of strength and not of weakness. I believe that the institution can be accountable. We can get resources, we can line up staff, we can have faculty to help. But if the students themselves do not learn to own and to philosophically ask that of themselves, whatever age they are, and we have a lot of freshmen who are non-traditional, to really make the most of the resources at their disposal and even make the most of the tuition and fees that they're already paying for. So accountability at all levels is really important. I also believe it starts with me. And I think about that every single day that I am on the job. Have I been accountable today? Did I show up on time? Did I show up with a smile? And then finally, the third value. So after exceptional care, exceptional accountability, and exceptional results. And this is a picture of one of our graduates last August. Because of COVID, we had to postpone commencement a couple of times. We finally decided to hold it in the parking lots. The convocations were amazing. It was a hot day. I was out there with my pom-poms and gown and with the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. And what was so memorable about that convocation and then a commencement that evening with Gail Miller, and we had a rock band and fireworks, was what I saw on the faces of students and families. And I was actually joking about how we told everybody to have only one car, but inevitably there were families, and many of them were first gen, who brought several cars and all their cousins. And it was so moving to see hear the laughter, see the tears, just the pride that everybody felt for having accomplished something really hard and maybe new for their family. So this is something that can't be taken away. And I want all of you to know that when things like this happen, it is in a big way because of people like you. Social support, academic support, financial support. It's really something wonderful to celebrate. And last August, we graduated. During the pandemic, we graduated the largest number of graduates ever in UVU's history. And 45% of them were first gen. I actually had to have this number verified 2 or 3 times because I just thought 45%, is that real? And so when you think about people like me going to college or are 45% first generation, we have to realize that this is a gigantic multiplier effect. Graduation is just the first step. They go on, they're better equipped to face the world and to face life. And their cousins see this, their children see this, their siblings see this, and they too want to go to college or get a post-secondary degree. And so this to me is, actually, when I think about the word inclusion, because in higher ed, we also talk about diversity and inclusion a lot. If we don't land things like this, we have failed in inclusion. I don't really care what a student looks like or what their religion is, what their sexual orientation is. At the end of the day, our core business is to help them achieve something. And hopefully that's the degree that they came for, whether the credential can be a certificate, it can be an associate bachelor's degree, but that's why a university exists. We exist to really help people get there. Another thing that I'm excited about here at UVU is Momentum Year. And those of you who have been in higher education longer than I have know what this is about. This is very well researched. So it's a set of things you want students to hit in their first year, like, declare a general area for their major, take 15 credit hours. But I think Momentum Year can really be powerful as an intervention and a focus of our attention as we help the students, that audience with the rural students, first gen students, lower income students, to be able to complete their education and succeed at the university. I also want to single out the role of professors. So when we think about who's on the front line, it's not me, it's not even you, it's the professors. And so in this journey of helping students succeed, the professor is really, really important. And during COVID, I was so moved by what happened here at UVU. We conducted 2 student surveys and asked students to name a professor or staff member who specifically helped them navigate the difficulties of the new normal that we were facing. And in those two surveys, 1,362 professors and staff members were named. We sent them thank you notes and a small gift card. And the most important thing to me really was the underlining of the human connection. That the professor who sees her students, that's exceptional care, notices that they haven't done well in the first two quizzes and did not attend the last two classes, that professor could, intervene and ask. And some of those comments from the students were amazing, because they said for the first time, a professor asked them something like, how's your family navigating COVID? And for the students, they said, they'd never been asked where they were before, something like that. And that level of care really made a difference for their belief in their ability that they could do the hard things. So we have an amazing privilege to work in higher education, because every day, the things that we do, we're not selling widgets, we are changing human lives. We are transforming people's belief in themselves. We are giving them skills. We are helping them to navigate a world that is changing so rapidly, a world that is polarized, a world that is extremely unequal. It's so unequal. America is more unequal today than at any point in its history in the last 120 years or so. And so I can't underline enough the importance and value of the work that you are all doing. And I just want to end with this: together we can move mountains. I made it to the top of Timpanogos with the students. So go Trio. Thank you again for having me today. And I will stop sharing. I don't know if we have any time for Q&A, but I think we do. I'd be very happy to spend a little more time with you.
President, thank you so much for your remarks. We can do Q&A. Maybe and I'll watch the chat. One of the easiest way probably to do this is through the chat. So if you have a question for President Tuminez, go ahead and put it in the chat. I kind of anticipated that this was coming, so I have a question just to get us rolling here. So
go ahead, Dr. Nye. Don't make it too hard.
This ain't my first rodeo.
Make it easy.
So as we were watching that introductory video, and I've seen it a few times, but it's really meaningful to me, and I knew this audience particularly would find meaning in that introductory video of you. Can you talk a little bit about the role? I noticed the connection you had with Sister Elvira in that video. Can you talk about the role she had in your education and in your life?
Yes, I love that question. So Sister Elvira was this beautiful, young nun, and I had 5 sisters. There were 6 girls in my family. We actually all wanted to be nuns. And so Sister Elvira was the young nun who was doing that service project. They'd go to the slums to, bring old clothes and canned goods and also teach catechism. And so she came and found my family, really started talking to my mother and then some of my older siblings. And she remembers talking to me. And I don't even remember it because I was probably 5.5 years old. And so that was really I would say that was the key that unlocked the door. And what's the impact of that? So several levels. I think one, operationally, she just opened the door so we could get an education. I couldn't spell my name when I started school. That's one. The second thing was, of course, as a nun and helping me. It was a religious school, the College of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Colegio del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús. And so that early thinking about God and good, what is good, and how do you lead a good life. And there was another nun who actually also had a big impact on me, who told me one day, Astrid, you're not a good Christian if you don't see God in other people. And I thought, wow, that was I was so young, but I thought, what a concept that God was not over there in heaven. The God is here in people, and I've got to see that in people and respect them and help them, know that they have potential. So that's sort of the second area where from an early age, I really was starting to think about what is a good life? What is a good person? how do you align with the divine? And I had a lot of questions for the nuns, and they were very patient with me because I think I had theological questions that they were not expecting, and they kept telling me that, you know, don't worry about those things. The Pope and the priests in Rome are studying those things. But I really had a lot of questions. And then the third thing I think was just the example, you know, the life that Sister Elvira, and to this day, you know, I'm in touch with her. Just the lives that they led, it's lives of sacrifice. And so and then also that they were strong women, because besides Sister Elvira, we had a Mother Superior. She was a nun that, you know, she was so scary. And so I actually thought of women as real authority figures because I was around these nuns. And so that's something that I just, you know, when we're that, you can all remember people who influenced you when you are 10 and younger. Those are just such formative, powerful influences in our lives. So that's Sister Elvira. There's probably a lot more to be said, but I'll stop there. So
I've been watching the chat. You're getting a lot of thank you, so awesome, great to meet yous in the chat, and thank you so much for being inspiring from our colleagues around the state. And I want to be mindful of your time, President. Can we just, I wasn't sure if you were done.
There's a carrot cake recipe question.
Oh,
So,
okay.
when I got married, I was given the book Pinch of Salt Lake. I don't know if that cookbook still exists, but there is a carrot cake recipe in there. It's a recipe from mining. So miners needed something very heavy. And this cake has everything, good and bad. But it is really heavy. And I don't cook very much because I find it stressful to cook, especially under pressure. But if I had a lot of time, I like to cook. But I love to eat. And I love to eat. I will eat in all the Michelin restaurants I can find. I really love food. And so if you find that book, A Pinch of Salt Lake, that's where that carrot cake recipe is. I see the question here too. I'm impressed by the statistics of first-gen students who graduated. What can administrators do to increase those types of numbers? So I think, you know, the first thing administrators could do is look at data. Before I came to UVU, I worked for Microsoft, and working for a tech company made me appreciate for the first time in my life what data is. What is big data? What's dumb data? What's hype data? What is insight? How do you cut and slice, you know, data and present it? And so I think the first thing for administrators is look at data. And so for me, I think I did a listening tour when I first arrived, and you know, during listening tours, many people like to complain. It's very easy like to complain, and then I would ask for data. I would ask for what's happened the last 3 years or the last 5 years, or you know, how do we track interventions? Actually, I learned a lot. I saw a lot of great data at UVU because the interventions were amazing. And you see that it takes 6 to 8 years for those interventions to appear in your number. What bothered me was why we hovered, why we haven't gone past that tipping point to really, you know, go past 36%. And so that's when I challenged my own colleagues, and they've been patient and kind. So look at your data, then decide. When I first ask, what is a doable and ambitious number? Not an ambitious number that you can't hit, but you know, doable. And we have experts here. I have colleagues whom you may know, Michelle Kearns and Dave Conley, who know this stuff so much better than I do. And when they told me that, you know, here's how it lands, you put this intervention in, we are doing so many things, and then you can actually see the lines, you know, start moving. So powering up those intervention, asking about what we can do better. So for example, I believe that advising could be done better in the sense that you have to have the same story told to all your freshmen. There has to be a central kind of story. in a dual mission institution like UVU, you have to tell students that a certificate is a meaningful credential and it counts. Because if you're going to get married and have kids and drop out, you better have finished that 6-month certification in IT proficiency or whatever it is. And then if you're coming from MTech, you know, and you did 900 hours in culinary, what can that translate to? Or 900 hours in a tech field, can that translate immediately into an associate's degree? Or you've done an LPN, can you articulate that into 30 credits in the nursing program here, which is a tough program to get into? So that's what I mean. The role of administrators, number one, is go back to those values. Do you see who your students are? Do you know that they're working 30, 40 hours a week? I run into these students at the checkout counter at the grocery store, and I feel such a moral duty, you know, that if they're working that hard, am I working hard enough as an administrator to help them navigate? Because it's a day-by-day navigation. So know your data, see what's going well, ask why some things are not going so well. What is the number you're trying to hit? And obsess about that number. And in every meeting, ask about that number. Every time somebody asks for budget, ask them for their retention and completion. It changes the way people think. And I know, Barney, do you want to add to that? Do you think that I nagged enough at this institution? I'm the presidential nagger on completion and
President, I would never say that you nag. So let's start. But it is meaningful that repetition of a goal has been really meaningful, because we're all talking about 45% in some way or another. And all of us in terms of data have a different way to get to that too. The way the interventions a TRIO program has, or a first generations, or the wraparound services look different than what would happen in a classroom or with stackable credentials or something like that. And so it's a multitude of ways to get to one place. And we've got to hit, it's, you know, I don't know, what's my metaphor? A diamond. We've got to have many facets on the diamond for it to actually cut the glass.
Yeah. And by the way, the academic and student affairs conversation, that is to me where magic happens. You could have all of this extracurricular, the grants, you know, the lead program. If that is not aligning with academic advising, you know, what the scheduling of classes, so something as technical as class scheduling, you know, having realized here that has a massive impact. It could delay completion by 1 year. And if you lose that student, honestly, we have failed them. That is on us. And so, wow, the carrot cake recipe is already there. You guys are making me hungry. I haven't had breakfast.
Camille has a question. Do you have any ideas on how organizations who serve first-gen students could effectively work together to better serve the students?
Yeah, so I may have started answering that by the linking academic affairs with student affairs. And so I think those conversations have to happen constantly, clearly, and consistently. And then I'm just a big believer in conversation and asking direct questions. So for example, one of the big questions in my mind right now is multicultural student services. And I am asking for data. What is your addressable market at UVU when it comes to LGBTQ, Black African diaspora, Asian Americans, Native Americans? What is that addressable market? And then second, how many actually avail of services? So if you're telling me we've got 4,000 or 5,000 Latinos and we've only seen 50, these are theoretical numbers, these are not real numbers. How many actually avail of services? And then in the last, you know, look at it, the last 3 years, I think this is where conversations could happen between, again, co-curricular and then academic and then my cabinet. So how you drive this is really connecting the dots. Sometimes it's easy to do what we do. So let's say I'm running the lead program here and I'm helping students with, you know, time management, but then I've never introduced them to career development center. So there's this whole other thing where internships, you know, job placement, it's really connecting the dots. And the most interesting I find, that I've worked in many organizations. I have 10 years of experience in the corporate world, and as well as in direct philanthropy. The best organizations and teams I've found know how to connect the dots on what they're doing, what are the resources that are already in place. Sometimes it's really difficult, especially if chemistry isn't there. But if you could somehow facilitate those conversations and then the collaboration, amazing things can happen for students.
President, I want to be mindful of your time.
I can stay here till 10, Barney.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay. We have a question from Kimberly Hyatt. Do you know your Clifton Strengths Finders? I know that came up somewhere in your presentation. Do you know your strengths on the Strengths Finders, just out of curiosity?
So not the Strength Finders per se, but I've actually been assessed several times and very thoroughly. The one that I remember the most was at Microsoft, and this is like many hours of assessment with a consultant. And let me see if I can remember my strengths. Definitely I'm kind of an extrovert, and although I find that strange because my favorite moments are running when I'm all by myself and nobody's bothering me. I can't remember, we were kind of color coded. I am definitely kind of that big picture person who leads, because there are those strengths that other people are kind of facilitators, or they are more analytical. For example, I think I'm also fairly analytical, but there are people who analyze at a level of detail that I'm not very good at. And so from a top level here, I can see what needs to happen and the dots that need to be connected. What are the categories in Clifton Strengths?
That is a good question, President, that I have to Google right now because it's not coming into my brain.
Yeah, just tell me,
Executive,
Kimberly.
strategic thinking, relationship building. I just see you having all, I mean, they're all amazing, all 34 of the strengths, but I see you having analytical with woo and communication. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you, Kimberly. By the way, when we think about strengths, I was not always this strong. Like if you saw me today, obviously I'm older, and much of this comes from, I think because my childhood was very deprived, I had to develop certain skills of survival and certain skills of resilience. But once I started working with adults and people, I have a quality to me that I like, and it's about being spongy. I'm like a sponge. And my husband can barely keep up, because when I see something that I'm curious about, for when we lived in New York City, I saw this man doing these animal forms, kung fu, and I'm like, that led to 11 years of kung fu training. So being a sponge and being curious and always admitting that I don't know. I have never ever been embarrassed to say, I just don't understand that. I don't know what that acronym is. So when I got a job in investment banking, and I interviewed with the 5th highest officer of Morgan Stanley, and that's pretty intimidating. And he walked me up. Please don't ask me any questions about banking. But I was applying for an investment banking job. And I said to him, here's what I know. Ask me about the things I know. No question is off limits. But you cannot ask me about banking, because if you hire me, you're going to have to teach me that stuff. They actually gave me a job offer. So with our strengths, I just want to pause for a second to say to everyone, your strengths are not the only strengths you have. Some of your strengths are latent. And if you're curious and you want to learn, you can definitely hone even more strength. So I just want to encourage all of us, as if we are still alive, that we have opportunities to do things that we've never done before.
Thank you, President.
Maybe one last question.
One last question. Kyle Ethelbaugh from the University of Utah says, I've always appreciated the intentionality behind the messaging that comes out of UVU. We have so many of our students in our outreach programs who identify as people of color, and the offerings and support available at UVU are a big draw. Thank you for continuing that legacy.
Thank you, Kyle. You know, when I started this job, I didn't even really think about my story as very relevant, and I was really amazed at how much it's resonated here with students. I've had you know, a gay student of color once came up to me after a game, and he wanted to shake my hand, and he said to me, I am so astounded that someone who looks like you has power. He used that phrase, someone who looks like you. and I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was also a little bit strange because I don't often think about the way I look. I just want to get things done. But the fact that for students, you know, all of us here, again, whatever we look like, the ability to embody leadership and effort and hard work and success is so important because the students are watching. So it's been amazing for me to get the feedback from students and know that that my story resonates. I'm grateful for that.
President, thank you so much. And like I say, everybody else on the call probably didn't know why I wanted so much to have you speak to this, but your story really, I knew and does resonate with this group in a really meaningful way. We see you in our students, and we see you in us in a lot of really meaningful ways. And we appreciate your time and your energy, your candor, and your vulnerability too, to share some things about your life that, you know, it's not always easy to talk about personal things like your relationship with a teacher or something like that. So we appreciate your time and your, and again, I will never call you a nag. We appreciate your focused energy to support students who are underrepresented in higher education at UVU. And we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Barney. Thank you again to all of you. And thank you for the work that you do. It does matter every single day. So more power to you.
Thanks, President. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great Thursday. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Looks like Barney is out for just a moment. In interest of time with that particular session, we have Paul and Marilyn ready at I think 10. So Samantha and Teresa, if we can move hearing from you till after, or if we have any spot towards the end or tomorrow afternoon, we'll get you in. So.
Teresa and Samantha, thank you for your understanding too. There's a little toggling this morning about the president's timing, so I appreciate your willingness to be flexible on that too. And you know, I also think I can work some time into that last day. We'll find a little time in there to get that as well. Okay. Do we have, we're at 9:59. Do we have Paul and, sorry, I can't see everything because my eyes
Paul and Marilyn are here and they are ready. So if you're ready for them, they can start, Paul and Marilyn, you can start sharing your screen.
And while they're queuing up their screen and stuff, Paul and Marilyn Thayer, just so the membership knows, are TRIO legends from the state of Colorado. Paul has been in TRIO programs for, I'm not going to say the number because it's a good size number. And even in retirement remains connected with the TRIO community and the Aspire community. And I think can offer us some great insights in terms of leadership development and ways we can take up the challenge of making sure that we are best supporting our low-income and first-generation students here in Utah. So I will turn the time over to them.
There we go. We forgot to unmute. Are you hearing us?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And do you see a blank screen?
We do.
Okay, great. Well, Wonderful to be with you this morning. Thanks so much. We are so grateful to be with all of you. I want to recognize Rachel and Anthony, and what a wonderful leadership team you are providing and representing Utah in all kinds of forums. Thanks to Barney and the committee. UVU and the conference are just wonderful. And see how to follow President Dominguez, my goodness, she is just wonderful. And it's a couple of things struck me. One is the way that she began with a story, which is relevant to what we're wanting to say. And the second is what a great job you all have done in TRIO to communicate the story of TRIO in ways that have resonated with President Dominguez. Anyway, I want you to now imagine dramatic music as we open our presentation, which we've called Positioning TRIO at the Forefront, Elevating Our Centrality to Institutional and State Strategy. And welcome and thanks to all of you. We are so honored to be a part of your conference. Thanks so much for the invitation. We want to introduce ourselves briefly. I wish we were in a setting where we could see and introduce all of you, but I will tell you that briefly, I started my career, as many of you did, as a teacher. I did community organization work for a number of years. I taught ESL, worked in community education, but then one of the great gifts in my life, I was able to begin work at Colorado State University in TRIO. I spent 20 years working with TRIO pre-collegiate programs in the business of access, and then 20 more years in the business of student success and retention and institutional change. Altogether, 40 years either being paid by TRIO or doing TRIO work during all of that. Marilyn?
I'm also an educator at heart. Paul and I actually started out our careers as teachers, and I've spent almost 40 years in the field of education in various capacities. And my capstone of my career really was in TRIO. That's how I ended. I ended strong in TRIO, where I worked as the director of the TRIO Student Support Services at Colorado State University. I think one of the things that I valued is that it allowed me to serve on many committees, university-wide initiative committees that allowed us to really focus on creating important policies and programs for TRIO and TRIO-like students, TRIO-eligible students. And though Paul and I have retired, officially retired 3 years ago, I also continue to remain a long-time supporter of TRIO. I mean, it is our passion. It is something that we, both of us decided to do when we did retire, to continue being committed to TRIO and continue serving in how we can. In addition to serving formally as the treasurer for not only our state chapter here in Colorado, but also the Aspire board, I served as the treasurer, and I currently serve as the chair for the Aspire Leadership Institute. I strongly believe in the importance and urgency of Aspire's investment in leadership development. Our future remains not only in advancing the mission and vision of our association, but also in conducting and coordinating the powerful advocacy for TRIO and our students, increasing professionals and project effectiveness, and lastly, continuing to build an inspiring as well as an inspired community.
Now, some of you we've known for years and years, and some of you we haven't had the pleasure of knowing personally. So we thought we would give you a sense of who we've been as TRIO professionals. This is us when we were working in TRIO. And you know, TRIO gives you superpowers, but the bad news is it doesn't last into retirement. So this is us now. We want to begin by sharing our view of leadership, that leadership is not a matter of position, absolutely not a matter of position, but mindset. That means that leadership is not the province of directors. It is not the province of coordinators. It is the province of every single person working in TRIO, every single person on this call. Each of us has such an important role. And so when we think about broadening our leadership, we are, each of us in TRIO, called on to be leaders for equity, no matter our position or years of experience. We're called on not only to be talented and skilled with our students, but also to serve our students through our interactions with our institutions and federal and state education policy. And again, I'm not talking about directors, I'm talking about every single one of us. So to do all this, we need to be exceptionally clear and powerful in the ways that we communicate the TRIO story. So this is what we want to do in the minutes ahead. We want to talk about what we're going to call a TRIO dilemma. We want to talk about the importance of engaging outwardly. We want to talk about the importance of telling a distinctive and powerful story, what we're going to call a narrative. We want to look beyond our current boundaries and look outward to state education policy. And we want to think finally about the critical role of our association and ways to be involved. We're wanting to cover a whole lot of ground, and the committee has encouraged us to do that. What I hope is that every person on the call and in the conference can take away at least one thing that is of use. So we want to start with what we've called this TRIO dilemma and see if it's something that you can relate to.
Well, what are these dilemmas? We all seem to have been challenged by common perennial problems, not only in our programs, but across the country. And how do we address them? So let's look at what these unique issues are for us as professionals. First is that no matter how much we value our work, and we work so hard in what we do, it seems that our institutions tend to overlook our contributions. A more recent phenomenon that many of us may be experiencing is that institutions are suddenly, quote unquote, discovering first generation students, and they have to find intentional ways of serving them. That they also are, quote unquote, discovering TRIO strategies and creating programs without involving, unfortunately, TRIO leaders. Are any of you relating to this? Even though most of our policies for K-12 and higher education is formed at the state level, we have been mostly absent from state policy discussions. And lastly, it sometimes seems that we ourselves, even though unintentionally, play into these dilemmas. And I wanted to reiterate what Paul had said, that it's important to, first of all, acknowledge and intentionally find ways to confront these challenges. But it's so important that we understand and accept that these dilemmas are for all TRIO professionals to work on. If we truly are going to make a difference, we no longer can believe or let the responsibility lie with the directors, the coordinators of the program. It's the responsibility for every staff member, regardless of position and program. Well, let's start, go ahead and do the first slide. Let's start here. And not long after, we learned that we cannot serve our students adequately without becoming integrated into and influence the host institution in ways that increase success outcomes for TRIO students and students from similar backgrounds. But the survival of our projects and our students' futures really are also dependent on federal funding and legislation. So we must advocate for and be the voice for our programs and students and communities at the federal level. And if that's not enough, there's also this other level here. And sometimes I think we all might consider this a new frontier for us. And that is to engage in state policy discussions, since this is where educational policy is mostly developed. But reaching out to the state is less often a consideration and focus for many of us. Well, what seems to be getting into the way? Why does it sometimes feel so difficult, so challenging for us to be better positioned to challenge these dilemmas? Why do we seem like we might even be stuck? We're so good at what we do, but yet there are many pressures that really induce us to live too much in what we call the trio exclusive world. There are so many pressures, and it's so understandable that we tend to be more comfortable what we call being inward facing. There are good reasons for us to face inward. We really are prompted to do this just by the nature of our programs, our grants, our situations. It's the requirements of us managing the grants. It's our responsibilities to the grants. And sometimes it's also what the Department of Education really expects of us to be inward facing. But this really comes well, first of all, maybe I should talk about the gain. What is the positiveness of being inward facing? We have autonomy. We are invisible. No one really, people leave us alone. Others on campus sometimes refer to us as, oh, that's that federally funded grant, that program, that project.
I know when I was a new trio director, nobody knew who we were. Nobody cared about us. And there was tremendous freedom in that. We could do whatever we wanted, and we did.
But is this really what we want? So what is the loss? We do become invisible. And if we are invisible, our students become invisible. If we are irrelevant, we're really truly not serving our students well. And if we are going to be effective serving our students, we really need to become relevant. This is a more productive perspective and different approach for working, and we call this outward facing, which involves intentionally interacting with, engaging with, collaborating with our institution to help create change within that institution. During my time at SSS at CSU, we transformed our program model and made it a priority for us to really work towards becoming more visible, more relevant on campus. So my staff and I served on critical committees to have the forum to readily and repeatedly demonstrate how our activities were having a significant impact on the institution. When we were included in discussions like student success initiatives and other influential committees, we were able to work with others to create policies and programs that impacted not only our students, our first generation low-income students with disabilities, but all students who would be eligible for our programs. It's also important for us to demonstrate how do our goals align with the institution's strategic plans. And lastly, it really became important for us to help our university understand that our success achieving our retention and graduation goals really was their success in closing the achievement gaps. Well, what do we lose when we become outward facing? We lose that sense of freedom, the autonomy, the invisibility. But the invisibility, is that what we complain about all the time? That nobody recognizes us, no one gives us any credit or acknowledgement for the work that we do? But there's something that we gain that is far greater, and it is that visibility, it is that relevance. It's the resources that we can gain for our students, as well as having institutional influence.
So if we're going to influence our institutions, what are the steps towards doing that? We would say that a first and necessary step is improving our sense of who we are and how we communicate that. I want to depart a little bit for a minute and tell a story about corporate America and a company. That company is, whoops, wrong way. That company is 3M, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. And some years ago, 3M, there was a person in the 3M company who had an idea. Now, remember that 3M, what they exist for is adhering, putting things together in ways that never come apart. Adhesives, that's what 3M does. That's why I had a reel-to-reel tape to date myself, and I wondered why 3M made it. Well, they made it because they are so good at making magnetic substrate and that you can adhere to a film and it never comes apart. So the thing they do is make sure that things never come apart. So there's a person in the company that has a new idea, and that new idea has to do with things that don't stick. They don't stick very well. They only stick for a time. And this person tried and tried to get purchased somewhere in the company about this new idea. And for years and years, nobody would listen. They wouldn't listen because 3M makes things that stick together and never come apart. But almost decades later, finally, this person got somebody to listen. They created a new product, and you might guess what it is. Sticky notes. Sticky notes. And in the years since then, 3M has made billions of dollars on sticky notes. This idea of making things that don't adhere. The point is that their narrative about who they were was such that they couldn't see their way to making this new product that was about something that didn't stick very well, even though it was potentially such a successful product. So the question that I think we need to ask ourselves is, how do we see ourselves? What is our narrative? What is our story about what we do? And how does it limit or expand our possibilities? What is our business? What is our business most broadly defined? Is it tutoring? Or is it rather talent development? Is it equity and student retention and success? Depending on how we define ourselves, we have more or less opportunities to be in a broader sphere of influence at our institutions and beyond. I want to tell another quick story about a golden opportunity to tell our TRIO story. I was flying back from DC one time. It was a while ago, so it was probably on a plane that looked a lot more like this than the planes that you all fly on now. And I sat down, and my gosh, there's somebody sitting next to me, and we introduce ourselves, and it turns out to be the congressman for the 4th District of Colorado. And I am going to be stuck on the plane with this person for the next 4 hours. What an opportunity to tell our TRIO story. So he asked me who I am, what I do, and then I begin to tell him. And I could tell within the first few minutes, I had him for the first few minutes, and after that, his eyes kind of glazed over. He was pretending to listen to me. And then as soon as there was a pause in my tale, he said, well, very nice. And he went back to working on all the legislative things that he had on his tray table. I was exceptionally unsuccessful in telling our TRIO story and presenting a narrative that would engage the congressman despite this golden opportunity. So one of the things that I have learned from that, because that story has haunted me for years and years and years, is this idea of narratives. We're always telling stories. It's interesting that President Dominguez, when she began her presentation, she oriented around stories. And then she told the stories of TRIO students. That's really important. It's a way of communicating meaning. And there's stories that others tell about us and our students. Some of those are really damaging, aren't they? And there's stories that we tell about us and our students and our place in the environment. And unfortunately, sometimes we tell those stories in ways that play into the stories that others tell about us, instead of presenting a powerful counter narrative to the way that we're often represented. So our point is that we need to develop a narrative, a story that demands centrality in our institutions, centrality in whatever conversations that we're going to be a part of. And we think that a powerful narrative requires two things: distinctiveness and power. Under distinctiveness, we need to play to our strength. Our strength is that we implement coordinated and systemic strategies that structure students' experiences and produce exceptional success. That seems to be at the core, for me, of what distinguishes TRIO. And power. The other things that we need to play to is, instead of just listing the department-oriented descriptions of TRIO, communicating a narrative that talks about the impact and relevance of what we do in terms that other people understand. So to pursue that a little bit further, the idea of distinctiveness. My advice is, we do not want to say that we provide a bunch of services like those listed in the TRIO regs. We have to respond to those things when we write proposals, but we're funded now. We're no longer writing proposals. Now we're talking about the power of what we do. And the power of what we do consists of designing a system of coordinated activities and services that structures student experiences in ways that produce high levels of student success. And I think that's true for our pre-collegiate programs as well as our collegiate programs. If we talk about the particular things that we do, if we talk about taking students on trips, well, then we're in the touring business. If we talk about our tutoring program, and that's what we highlight, then we're in the tutoring business. What we need to talk about, what is distinctive about TRIO, is this system of putting these things together in a way that structures student experiences in ways that produce high levels of student success. And it's only when we do that, when we construct this whole system that structures students' experiences, the cocoon that President Dominguez talked about, that's when we really produce exceptional levels of student success. Now, I don't for a minute mean to say that the tutoring coordinator, who's so important to our operation, isn't really critical. It's just that our business is learning and student success and equity. And so the tutoring coordinator's business is student success and equity and learning. Those things are true for all of us. That's the big picture that makes us relevant to the institution. If we were nothing but a tutoring service, then the institution can hire somebody else to do that. But we have this exceptional insight into the experience of first-generation low-income students that allows us to construct this whole powerful system. The power part is the evidence of impact. As a result, students in our program, for example, graduate at rates such and such percent higher than similar students, and we improve the institution's graduation rate by X percent. So we want to lead with this distinctive story of who we are that's different from anybody else. Different from anybody else. It's distinct from the other thing that the institution wants to think about doing, and it's distinct from other things that are going on at the institution. And there is evidence that this works at a really high level, and we can provide the data to show that. So narratives about our projects and programs. Thinking back to what I said to the congressman on the plane, it probably went something like this. I probably led off with, well, we're a federal grant program with our own set of laws and regulations. This is the kind of thing that I heard somebody present to our new president. We have a new president of our university, and that's what they led with. We're a federal grant program. Well, federal grant program, they are temporary. Grants are temporary. And we have our own set of laws and regulations separate from the university. So we've already put ourselves in a box that we don't want to be in. So that was a bad lead for me. But we talk about that kind of reflexively. Our project serves poor kids. Well, that doesn't tell a lot about our vision of the capabilities of our students. We do tutoring and advising and start listing all the services. Again, for the reasons that I've described, that's not very effective or not very distinctive and not very powerful. We help students fill out financial aid admissions form. Well, we do that, but that's not the core of what we do. That's not what makes us powerful. We provide academic and social support. Yes, we do that, but that's not the core. We provide outreach. Yes, and we do that really well, but that's not the core. So the idea is to have a different way of casting our project much more broadly so that we position it as a critical and distinctive institutional force and a force for equity. I'd encourage you to begin thinking of the bullets that you would put in your description. that would present distinctiveness and would present power. And again, I'm not talking about directors only. I'm talking about every single one of us, because we are all part of this vision. We all need to be part of this vision. So what might be a way of talking about this? This is not suggesting this is the way you ought to talk about it, but it's one that I've thought about. These are some of the concepts that I want to get in my description. We're a strategically designed educational program that structures students' educational experiences in ways that account for students' differential prior opportunities. We build deep partnerships with surrounding communities and schools, cultivate and develop talent, enroll talent, a talent pool here at our college. It's a talent pool that wouldn't be otherwise available to our college, or to higher education without our programs. And our students account for X% of this year's new student enrollment. So this is a pre-collegiate version, right? And what's important to me in this description, strategically designed educational program that structures students' educational experiences. We're creating a whole experience. We do it in ways that account for students' differential prior opportunities. What's important to me in that is this is not about that narrative of underprepared students, which puts the whole burden on our students as though they're responsible for being underprepared, when it's a whole centuries-long history of why our students don't have the same opportunity. So I want to talk about our students in a different way. I want to talk about the deep partnerships with surrounding communities and schools, which our pre-collegiate programs do in a way that our universities and colleges cannot. I want to make our business that of cultivating and developing talent, and rolling that talent pool here at our college as well as elsewhere, and making the point that without our programs, that's a talent pool that wouldn't be available. This is an add-on. It's not like we would have those students if it weren't for our programs. And I want to quantify our success. So we could do the same thing with a collegiate program. A strategically designed educational program structures students' educational experiences, ways that account for differential prior opportunities, and produce exceptional degree attainment outcomes. That's the power, greater than similar students at our university. And I've got those key concepts in there. Strategically designed program, a system that structures students' experiences, takes into account differential prior opportunities, produces exceptional degree attainment outcomes and greater outcomes. Now, how I would present this would depend on who I'm presenting to, how much time I've got, right? And so I've got all kinds of versions of this that I would use with different audiences, everything from our parents to our president to a congressman. But I've got in my mind the things that I want to get in, that I want to convey about our story, about who we are and what our business is and how good we are at doing it, because that's what's going to engage people. So we want to, in composing that, we want to ask not just what we do, all this list of services, but why we exist. We want to think in composing this about how we've felt most supported or motivated by TRIO and Aspire. It's not by our individual services. We're motivated by this broad effort at student success. We want to focus on what's compelling and distinctive about our project or about our association, because we tell narratives about our association as well. And we need to think through the eyes and ears of our audience. I've had, as I said, I've had 40 years to work on this thing. And I started out with a whole lot of failures, but practicing, repeating, improving, repeat some more. So then I'm ready. I'm ready in advance for the audiences that I'm likely to encounter. Now, we also need to find the ways to communicate this narrative within our institutions. First part of that is we've got to be sure all of us are on board with that. Every single person on our staff needs to be on board with this vision, this story about who we are and what we do. We need to seek venues to convey that narrative. I learned from some other people about how important it is to repeat. Repetition is really important. There's somebody who begins every meeting by saying, you know, for those of you who weren't there last time, and then he goes into a narrative that reinforces the story of who we are. We need to speak in institution relevant terms and in the context of institutional strategic plans and priorities. And Marilyn, I know you've had some experience with that, with the SSS program at CSU.
Right. I wanted to say also that we have done such a good job sharing stories about our students. We know the qualitative data. We know the anecdotal data. But if we really are going to have an influence, if we really are going to have the attention that we want from our institution, we really have to learn how to use data in our narratives. We work so hard in our projects and we achieve positive outcomes for our students. And we're really proud of that. And I know all of you, those of you that have to prepare the APRs every year, work so hard on hours and hours putting that data together. And when that report is submitted, it's a celebration. You got it done that year. Oftentimes you do share it. Your supervisor gets a copy of your APR. Maybe your supervisor shares it on with their supervisor. But oftentimes, what do we do with the APR? I know for a long time, our APR just got filed and put away and stored away. If we really are going to be relevant, we no longer can follow that pattern. We need to look for ways to demonstrate how our data has the impact on our university. And so I want to share with you how we're going to reframe this data. Our limitation, I also wanted to point out that our limitation is also sometimes in the data that we're collecting ourselves, even though I've been told by I think one of the associate deans once told me that we have no problems with all the data that we're collecting because we are so consistent and it is such so holistic and comprehensive for us to be collecting data all the time. But our data and how we report it in the APR, how the data is measured, does not match the institutional data on retention and graduation, which means that we cannot compare. We have no basis of comparing our data with the institutional data. So we have to collaborate with the Institutional Research Office to translate our data into a form that's going to be respected, that's going to be relevant, that's going to be meaningful and trusted by our institution. And so this is the table that we came up with. You can see that the column on the left here, these are all measures that are very important to our institution. How many of our students earned a GPA of 3.0 or higher, or how many of them persisted from one semester to the next? How many were on academic probation at the end of the year? Then we listed how our students accomplished these outcomes in that column. The 61 in that cohort, you know about cohorts when we report in our APRs. Then we looked at how about the students across our university that are eligible for participating, but not participating in our SSS program. And then the final column there you can see is these are the rest of the students at our university that aren't eligible. And you can see across the board that the AA students did incredibly well, did dramatically well. But we also recognize that, I want you to recognize that these numbers that we're very proud of and we've been told that they are very impressive, was really built on a program that we have worked on restructuring for many, many years. And it's on a system of creating that system of coordinated services that structure student experience for success, as Paul was saying in his narratives. So it took a while for us to get there and achieve these outcomes. And the other factor is that our university is considered a selective institution. But the next step is really to look at how might we make our data more understandable, easier to understand what kind of story do we really want to tell with our data. So we looked at this particular factor, the persistence from the first year to the second year in terms of gap terms. And this is what we came up with when we put our data here in a graph form. Students who were not able to participate in our program were not eligible.
Students who are not first generation and not low income.
Yes, yes. Did not meet the criteria for participating in our SSS program, persisted at an 85.7%, which is good. But then we look at our students who were eligible, again, first generation, low income, disability background, but did not participate in our program. And they persisted at a rate of 77.6%. So when we look at the two columns, this is the gap. I guess we're going to look at that after, but let's go ahead and show the final column then. And in this particular year, the students in our SSS program persisted at a 98.4%. So if we look at the first two columns, we can see the difference in retention gap between the non-eligible and CSU eligible, as well as with our SSS students. Was there an effect on students who participate in the SSS program? And does this clearly demonstrate the contribution to the institutional priority on retention? And this is what I see as a pretty dramatic example. It's the data narrative that we were able to create using our data to make sense to our institution. And this has allowed us to make the argument for institutional relevance. I mean, they started paying attention to us when you compare these numbers, which resulted in major increases in the institutional support that we were able to receive as a result of this.
So Marilyn, you've talked about translating the data that we collect so conscientiously into institutional terms. Mm-hmm. You've talked about constructing a data story out of that, out of those data that are really compelling and easily understood. Another step that we took was that of trying to translate that into numbers that the institution that simply couldn't ignore. Now, in this next section, some of it's going to sound technical. I want to assure you that in the end, it's not. It's something that any of us can do. But I'm going to skip over all the hows of doing it. So please just try and get my main point. One is that we took those numbers that Marilyn was talking about, and we said, well, these are the percentage success rates, but let's translate that into individual students, because sometimes it seems like our program, we've been called boutique programs. We're just too small to make any difference. We have an institution that's about the size of UVU, I think. We've got about, better than 30, we got something like 32,000 students. So it seems like we're just a drop in the bucket with our little student support services program. But if we ask ourselves this question, how many additional students at the university, how many additional students graduating would it take to increase the institutional graduation rate by 1%? Well, the answer is you take the number of new freshmen each year, in our case, 4,500, 1% of those, 45 students. We've got to get 45 additional students graduated in order to raise the retention rate by graduation rate by 1%. And for institutional leaders, I can tell you 1% graduation rate increase, that is a big deal. Mm-hmm. In gap terms, we calculated that, and we need 17 first generation low income students additional to graduate to reduce our graduation gap, which we're very concerned about, by 1 percentage point. And if we want, and then you can double that, and say now 2% would be 34 students and so on. So that's the first thing that we did. Then we said, well, how does SSS fit into that? And when we did that, we saw that SSS was already accounting for 4 percentage points of gap reduction. In other words, if we didn't have a student support services program on our campus, we would have 4%, the graduation gap would grow by an additional 4 percentage points. The other side of that is what if we served more students in SSS? What if we served 100? And we calculated that we could reduce, the university goal is to eliminate the graduation gap. Well, we could take care of almost 15% of that if we served 100 students. And there's a cost for that. We calculated that. It would cost $140,000 to get 14% of the way to equity. And the institution said, well, that's a deal we can buy. We didn't say, you know, we do good things. We wish you could give us some money. We said, we'll make a deal. If you give us $140,000, we'll serve 100 more students, and we'll get you 14% of the way towards our gap reduction goal. The broad point behind this is that we want to translate things into institutionally relevant terms that the institution is compelled to pay attention to. Well, our narrative about centrality allows us to make these kinds of arguments with the institution. But another frontier is that of the state. You know, we pay a lot of attention to federal policy because our students get Pell Grants and we get our money there. So we've been involved in federal advocacy, but we haven't paid much attention to states. And I mean, we, all of us in the country. But, you know, the truth is that that's where education policy is mostly made. And if that's where it's made, and if our narrative is that that's our business, equity and student success and graduation is our business, why aren't we there? So we want to spend the last few minutes considering this idea of state level, of it being involved at the state level, because other people at our institutions are involved at the state level. It's just that TRIO is not well represented there. And honestly, you know, we just can't afford to wait for an invitation. Nobody's going to call us up and say, we wish you'd come down to the Capitol tomorrow because we need your testimony. Now, maybe, but not very often. We always have to insert ourselves into the discussion, and to do that with our broad narrative about our relevance. This is a leap for us. We haven't been involved at the state level, but if our narrative puts us at the center, then the state is another place that we need to be. So is this possible for us? I'd like to provide some examples from our experience in Colorado. Some of which may be relevant, some of them not, but for your considerations, just to think about this idea of engagement with state policy. Well, a place to begin is to have a state Aspire Governmental Relations Committee that includes not just federal policy, but state policy. And so that committee begins the process of becoming familiar with state policy issues. And then the committee informs and educates the state's TRIO constituency, so that we all start to be in that realm and feel comfortable with the issues and understand what's at stake for us and at stake for our students and our communities. So another level would be a day at the Capitol. And we do this in Colorado. And honestly, we just join in with another group. In our case, the Colorado State Counselors Association. They're highly organized and they have a day at the Capitol, and they've let us come. We join in because we have a lot of common interests. So they do all the work and we join in. Well, we listen and we become familiar with the policy issues that are going on. And then we join the counselors in their meetings with legislators. And that's good for us because we get some visibility, but we also get experience in this so that we become more familiar with all this stuff about state education policy. And it's been a really good relationship, a very comfortable relationship, but it really is the counselors' lead on this, and they have the most visibility. Well, back, you know, again, in ancient days when I was the state president for Colorado, that was when we first started a national policy conference with what COE, it was called something else at the time, what's now COE. And I went back and I thought, well, we could do this at the state level. So I took the whole agenda and tried to figure out how could we make that a state policy conference just for TRIO. And we did it. We did it on a state scale with all our membership participating, and everyone was invited. We had about 30 people. On day one, we worked on educating the membership on policy issues at the state levels, and educated people on how to talk with legislators. You know, one of the nice thing about state legislators, they're way more accessible and informal than national congressional legislators. And then we invited keynote speakers who are key legislators or those friendly to TRIO issues to speak. Now, the thing about asking somebody to speak, it's like President Dominguez this morning, they have to reacquaint themselves with who we are and what we do so that they can make a good presentation. So it's a great way to involve those people. So we had keynote speakers talking about TRIO's importance. It was great. They became TRIO familiar, if not TRIO allies, and we got to know more about those people, including the chair of the state education committee, the Senate Senate Education Committee. And then day 2, we had appointments made in advance with legislators in the district, with TRIO, the districts that had TRIO programs, or with chairs of education committees, and we went and visited with them. It was great. It really worked well. And we were impressed with ourselves, honestly. We could organize a collaborative forum. This is something that has taken us years to develop in Colorado, but we do it now. Every year, there's basically a conference, a collaborative forum that's co-sponsored by 3 groups: the Colorado chapter of Aspire, the Colorado State Department of Higher Education, and the Colorado Department of Education. So K-12, higher education, and TRIO, equal partners. We present and discuss issues of access, equity, and student success that are relevant to everybody. And it has developed into a really strong relationship among those 3 entities. So that's possible because it's happened. It came about through the cultivation of relationships with people down at the state capitol where we didn't used to be. Oh, here's another one: hire a lobbyist. Now, immediately, all of us in TRIO think, no, we can't lobby. We've got federal money. Well, we can hire a lobbyist through our association. That's not federal money. The association can do what it wants with its money. So we found a compatible education lobbyist who was familiar with us and had values about access and student success. And it happened to be somebody who was also the lobbyist for the School Counselor Association. We hired them for a small percentage of their time, a really small percentage, but they became familiar with our interests and operations. They tracked legislation for us and kept us informed. They represented us to legislators, and they presented to our membership so that we became more familiar.
And I also wanted to highlight that we used our Spraggins grant money to pay for the lobbyists, which was another way to look at this initiative.
Now, I want to do a final transition into the crucial role of our associations and each of our part in that. I can't tell you how strongly I believe in this, that our students and projects' future depends on the health of our Aspire Association. There is no question in my mind that I was able to direct a TRIO program, that we were able to serve over a period of years, thousands of students, talented, brilliant students, adults, young students, middle school students, college students, over that period of time, only because we organized. That is the only way that we survive. It is so critical that we have healthy, vital associations at the state, regional, and national levels. Now, what's the importance of association? What are the 3 functions that are core to their operation? 1, advocacy, to represent the voice of our students and projects and our communities, low-income, first-generation communities, in every form that's relevant. Advocacy is number 1. Number 2, equally as important, how do we become effective? I became way more effective as a project director through my association with other people in the TRIO community, through our Colorado and Aspire Association, and ultimately the national as well. 3rd function, our community of like-minded people, people that I love to be with, like you today, that I keep coming back to, because it's a group that believes, as I do, in the capacities of our students and the importance of education and elevating our students and our communities. So those are the three functions that are core to our association's operations. And those, there are other things we do, but that's at the core of all of them. Ways to, sorry, go ahead, Marilyn.
You're on a roll. These are the different ways to be involved in. And again, I want to go back to our concept of leadership, that it's not a position, it's a mindset. It's how you think about yourself being a leader. It's what you believe in, what you value, how you believe that you can make a difference. And there's multiple ways, multiple opportunities. Of course, these are some of the things that we've listed here at the state level, as well as at the regional level. Joining committees, running for office, helping and getting involved with conferences and Trio Day, things of that sort. But we also want you to think about that leadership in the very broad context. It's being good, being the role model, making a difference in your own project as well as at your institution. But especially now, we want you to think even broader at the state and regional levels.
And consistent with what Marilyn has said, what was an important thing for me was realizing that being involved with an association and leadership in the association wasn't a subtraction from what I was doing in my project. It was an enhancement. It made me a better leader. It made me a better project director. It helped me develop the strategies for becoming influential in the institution. So they are entirely compatible. Well, going back to the idea of narrative, there are ways that we can think about our association that aren't terribly inspiring. We dress up and get together away from campus, or our board meets to make decisions on a conference and manage the budget, or we hear speakers and go to concurrent sessions. Those things are true, but what is a more compelling narrative about our association? Well, here's one. We bring together the college opportunity advocates in this region or state to develop the strategies that will move our students far beyond what others expect of them. Together, we advocate effectively for our programs and advance equity and opportunity, both locally and nationally. We magnify our power by capitalizing on our collective wisdom and commitments and investing in the development of our members' talents and capabilities. And we do all those things, don't we? We advocate, we collectively improve our strategies for effectiveness, we advocate for our programs and for our students, we magnify our power by our collective wisdom, commitments, investing in the development of our members' talents and capabilities. That is what our associations do. It's why they are so powerful and so vital to our future. Those are the key things that I try and include in the narrative about why, the why of our associations. Well, we began as President Dominguez did with stories, and that really has been the theme throughout this presentation. As somebody has said, human beings are made of atoms, yes, but somebody told me that we are also made of stories, and stories truly are one of the core elements of our existence. Phew. We tried to cover a lot of ground. I hope it wasn't too much. We're a little short of time, and I'll defer to the conference chairs on whether there's any opportunity for thoughts or comments or challenges.
Hi. One question that we have had is would you be willing to share your PowerPoint with us that we can distribute out so folks can review that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank
We'll
you
send
so
it.
much. We are short on time, but I want to thank Paul and Marilyn again for their contributions. I know, you all are legends for a reason, and you made that abundantly clear over the last hour. Your deep knowledge and your deep experience is very, very useful to us here in Utah as we look at our next phase forward and some strategic planning we're trying to do at this conference and in future conferences to improve in terms of our communication and our advocacy. And again, we just appreciate your time and your expertise here in Utah. And we're happy we're neighbors.
We're happy that we're neighbors. We so admire what you're doing there in Utah. You are doing wonderful work. Congratulations and best wishes to all of you.
And thank you for this opportunity. Love being a part of your conference.
Thank you. Folks, we've got about 5 minutes before in my opinion, the best part of the entire conference is the Trio Achievers ceremony. It touches my heart every time. I'd like to invite Paul and Marilyn to stay around if you'd like. It's totally up to you for that. We're going to take about 5 minutes and then we'll get started right around 11 or 11:02, right in there for the next segment. So thank you all very much.
So finalize Hi, Abdul.
Hi.
Well, folks, thanks for that indulgence. We're gonna get started here in about 30 seconds again. And with our Trio Achievers ceremony, I am very excited about this, as I am every year about this this portion of our program. It's a nice reminder of why we do the work we do and how lucky we are to get to work with such amazing students who become alumni and do amazing things with their lives too. It's a real treat to do that. I think I'm going to turn this over to Leanne Maxwell. I think I can't see anything. Welcome back to my eyes. I can't see anything again. Leanne, are you here? There you are. Hi, Leanne. I can't hear you though. Oh, now I can. Now I can. Sorry.
Good. And I should be logged in under Tammy Schubert. So the caption under my name.
Oh, you're Tammy. You're Tammy today. How very stealthy of you, Leanne. We appreciate Leanne's leadership on the Trio Achievers work every year. She is the master at this and celebrates our alums so well. So I'll turn over to her.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, so I am so excited to be able to recognize our Trio Achievers. I think it's awesome that we can see the success of some of our people as they graduated high school and or college, well, college too, definitely, and going on to their professional lives. So I think that's really awesome. And I want to read you the part of the application that talks about what a Trio Achiever is. So you can all be reminded of the importance of it, and also so you can be thinking of students that you have from the past that could be a Trio Achiever. We didn't get as many applications either year as I would like to have seen, because I know there are so many more students that have been successful and we should be recognizing. So this is what the application says. A Trio Achiever is an exceptional student who represents the mission of Trio while overcoming challenges with an attitude of optimism and hope. A Trio Achiever is one who has persisted in their educational goals while making civic or professional contributions, and whose participation in a Trio program had a significant impact in their life and future success. So you can see that this is quite an achievement, and we are so happy to recognize 5 people, 2 from 2021, 3 from 2020, that have achieved this award. And our first one, for the people from 2020 have all gone on to their other things, and because it's been a year since we congratulated them on achieving the award, they are not able to be in attendance today. But we have our 2 from 21 that are going to be here, and our first one is Maggie Tobar. She was nominated by Keith Jensen from Utah Valley University, and she was in Trio Student Support Services. So Maggie, if you are there, if you will unmute and start your video, we can recognize you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maggie Tovar. I have worked at Trio Student Support Services as an admin and then as an advisor since 2017. I am originally from El Salvador. I came to the United States when I was in 2015. And the first thing I did was enroll at UVU, because it has always been my dream to pursue education. And I think that through education, we can reach several populations that are underserved, such as the Latino population, for example. I am Latina, so I'm passionate about Latinos. I want to thank everybody at the TRIO family. It is a family. I was always supported by everyone, including Abdul, which is another TRIO achiever that's gonna speak in 1 minute. And then also Camille Beecroft. I'm mentioning them too because both of them were my tutors, and they were more than tutors. They were friends. They were people who made me feel welcome. And then I became a professional at TRIO because I felt like we could reach more people through TRIO. TRIO works. So I thank you for this honor of receiving the TRIO Achiever Award. And yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maggie. I can tell that you definitely deserve this award. That's awesome. Barney, do you have the picture that Jamie sent of the plaques they're going to receive?
I do have it. Give me 2 seconds.
You can share it.
I'm-
And while you're doing that, I will get that ready for after Abdul talk.
Here, I've got it right now. Here it comes, just so you can see what they look like.
So Maggie asked me, no, what award do we receive? And I said, well, you get a plaque in the mail. These are last year's. This year's still in the coming. But you get a plaque and you get bragging rights. So anybody you know from TRIO, you can brag to them that you received a TRIO Achiever Award. And even to people that are not from TRIO, because you can tell them all about TRIO when they say, what? So let's introduce Abdul Columbi, and I hope I got your name right, Abdul. He was nominated by Keith Jensen. Oh, and I messed up. Maggie was nominated by Tino Diaz, and Keith Jensen is the director of all programs. But Abdul was recommended by Keith Jensen, and he was part of the TRIO Student Support Services program at Utah Valley University. Abdul.
Hi, my name's Abdul Kalumbi. Thank you for the award. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored. TRIO has played a huge role in my life. When I went to UVU, it was challenging for me to do well in my classes because I needed extra support. And I was able to meet Keith, and I learned that I could get tutoring services to help me with my classes. And if it wasn't for TRIO, I wouldn't have graduated. So I'm really appreciative to Keith and also the TRIO staff.
Thank you, Abdul. That's awesome. And we're so glad that you were able to talk to us. Jonathan is here with us, and Jonathan nominated one of the TRIO Achievers from last year. And
She's got both.
he nominated 2 of the 3, actually. So Jonathan, did you say one of them is John?
We're trying to connect with the Zoom right now.
Okay, then let me recognize the other 2. Which one are you talking to?
Garrett Nicholson.
The other
Hey,
2
I'm actually here, guys. I made it.
Okay. So
Yeah, I actually got off work early, so
are you going to be able to say a few words about how TRIO helped you?
yeah, no, I'd love to. You know,
Let me introduce you quickly. This is Garrett Nichols. He was part of the TRIO Student Support Services program at Dixie State University. And Jonathan Morrell was his director and his nominator. So go ahead, take it away, Garrett. I'm glad you can join us.
yeah, thank you so much, and it's definitely an honor to be here and to be, you know, nominated for this award. No, it was a great experience. You know, I was coming in back, it was about 10 years ago. Jonathan and I were speaking on the phone yesterday and realized that, and it hadn't quite dawned on me that it had been that long. You know, I was 21. I just got off a mission for my church, and it'd been about a year I'd been home. But you know, a friend of mine actually told me, hey, go talk to Jonathan Morel. You know, he'll help you out. Right. I had no idea what to expect. I never signed up for classes, didn't have a clue what I was doing. You know, and school is always kind of, you know, hard for me. I was kind of intimidated, honestly, by it. Didn't do that great in high school. Not because I didn't work hard, but it was just kind of a struggle for me. And so I was kind of scared to, you know, try to do the whole college thing. So I went in there, talked with him. You know, we looked at classes, got things figured out, and then he brought up this program Trio to see if, you know, I was eligible for it. I kind of told him about my background a little bit. And he said, you know, I think you qualify for it. So it was a huge blessing for me just being able to go there and get that extra help that I needed with tutoring. It was a lifesaver, honestly, because I really needed that one-on-one help and experience, especially with math, because that was a struggle for me. So just that patience that was there, and the resources, and just the overall kind of knowledge that program gives, and that even that class, you know, knowing those things about it, things that are happening on campus, and just the extra effort and things that are available to you as a Trio student. So it was good. I'm super grateful for it. You know, I think, and Jonathan is just great at what he does. He's great at helping students and improving them, and having some of those kind of heart-to-heart chats sometimes that you kind of need to hear, but you don't want to. No, I'm honestly forever grateful for him, and for that program and opportunity that I had to be a part of it. So
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, Garrett. And we're glad you could join us.
yeah, I know, it's great. So it worked out.
Awesome. So the other two people that we are not going to be able to see today are Tyler Allen Nelson. He was also recommended by Jonathan at Dixie State University, and he was part of the student support program down there. And last but not least, for 2020, was Shaquille Keith. She was a member of the Trio Talent Search program at Weber State University, and was recommended by Rebecca Tierney. So we congratulate all of you. We didn't need a whole hour for this program. It's too bad we can't have a luncheon. That would extend it to an hour, but we'll do that next year. So thank you all, and congratulations to all of you. You will be getting your reward in the mail.
Thank you so much to all of you. And again, I just want to, as a Trio alum myself, I just want to say, you know, it's amazing to see our students go on and do amazing things with their lives. It's part of what really at least motivates me to keep doing this work in a lot of ways. And I want the three of you to know that it's a nice club to be in as a Trio alum in a lot of ways, and I'm grateful for it. And I hope that you know, I'm sure that you all are taking steps to pay forward what has happened, you know, in your lives and your experiences with the Trio programs over the years. So I just want to say hello and thank you, and again, my congratulations, and the congratulations of all of us. And I don't want to put Dixie on note, you know, I just say I never thought last year when we had to cancel the conference that we would still be doing this virtually this year. And I genuinely miss that. And so I'm just going to say that if you can come to the luncheon next year, I will make sure to buy your lunch, and I'm on record with Dixie for that. So yeah, it's always nice to meet our Trio Achievers in person as well. So thank you for understanding the joys of the pandemic as well. And with that, we have a little bit of time. I think if we can, since we do have a minute, and we had to shift things around a little bit this morning, first thing, maybe we can have an opportunity for our new office holders to introduce themselves. Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, welcome. Go.
All right, I'm ready to go. Congratulations to our trio achievers. You all have incredible stories and we're very proud of all the success that you've achieved. So good morning to my Utah Aspire colleagues. I'm thrilled to be your newly elected Utah Aspire president. After filling in for the office of president-elect for the past few months, I've loved what the job entails, advocating for our trio students in the offices of our representatives at Policy Seminar, listening to trio professionals across the state about the unique needs of their students, whether they reside in urban or rural Utah, and giving a voice to those concerns at national leadership meetings, and seeking out the best paths forward for trio students with the board as we continue our journey through this pandemic together. For those of you who don't know me, I thought I'd introduce myself and give you a little information about my background. I was first introduced to trio about 15 years ago when I was earning my bachelor's degree in physics at Weber State University. I saw one of the flyers on campus that the Upward Bound program was in need of math tutors, and that quickly became one of my first part-time jobs as a college student. I loved working with my bounders and quickly accepted the opportunity to teach math and science for 2 summer programs. After I graduated, I left Weber State to pursue my dream of becoming a scientist in graduate school at the University of Utah. And after I earned my master's degree, I was in the midst of presenting my research nationally and internationally at conferences when I realized that working in academia was bringing me more anxiety and stress than fulfillment and joy. I made the decision to leave research and seek out a job as a local forecaster or a data analyst in a lab. But while I was applying for jobs, I got word that the Upward Bound program at Weber State was in dire need of a STEM specialist. I applied, figuring I would fill in for a short time to earn some money while I was searching for other jobs in science. I got the job, and I think I literally went home and cried when the director told me what she could afford to offer me for a salary. But I accepted, again, expecting this to be kind of a short-term job. Well, my life was forever changed the day I accepted that position with Weber State Upward Bound. I loved my coworkers. I loved our mission as a trio program, and the joy and fulfillment that I'd been missing working in science abounded in my interactions with my students. I couldn't believe I'd somehow stumbled on a job that united my passion for, my passion for science with my secondary passion for social justice. I was overjoyed that I spent my days exploring the wonders of math, science, and engineering with young people, introducing them to STEM professionals and taking them on science field trips like Ms. Frizzle and the Magic School Bus. Suddenly, my salary was not as big of a deal anymore. A year and a half ago, our director retired and I applied for the position, hoping to have the opportunity to lead the program that has been such a big part of my life for the past many years. I got the job, and then 5 months later, the COVID-19 pandemic began. While I considered myself very prepared to run an Upward Bound program under normal circumstances, there were more than many moments over the past year when I resented the fact that I had no actual experience to fall back on for what director responsibilities look like during a normal year. Meeting with you and talking to many of you, my Aspire colleagues, has been invaluable as I've pushed forward through the immense challenges and uncertainties of serving students during this pandemic. I suspect that transitioning back to being in person and recovering from the past year will be as challenging, if not more challenging, than our first months with the virus. I'm anticipating new difficulties as we get our students back into the classroom, help them to reach their full academic potential again, and help support them and their families after months of job, housing, and family losses. I'm looking forward to meeting each of you and your teams and working closely with you to provide a united front of trio advocacy and student support as we continue to work diligently to help our students achieve their dreams. I am so excited by the strategic planning Barney has centered this conference around, and I'm looking forward to revolutionizing what the face of trio looks like across the state of Utah. Together, we have shown that through everything, adversity, poverty, seemingly unbeatable odds, and even a global pandemic, trio works.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
I'll just jump right in. My name is Teresa Frazier, and I am the Upward Bound Director at Utah State University in Blanding. I am a first generation college student. My parents, I'm Navajo. My parents were did not receive their high school education. I wasn't a part of TRIO. I wish I was. I graduated from American Fork High School. My husband is the same. He is a first generation college student. We both have our degrees and we both have our masters. And we moved down to Blanding about 20 years ago, and I started working for College of Eastern Utah and as a recruiter, and then moved from that to student life and leadership, and then moved from that, was asked to be the director of Upward Bound, which I really didn't know a lot about. I kind of knew about it, but I didn't know about it. And man, I found my passion. I love Upward Bound and I love the TRIO program. We have 4 sons, and they too are all college graduates. My oldest was an ICU nurse at the University of Utah, and he actually started Navajo Strong, which is a nonprofit organization, and it's become $1 million nonprofit organization. And he set it up as a nurse, not only to see the disparities among the Navajos on the reservation, but those that were affected, and wanted to give more information about the pandemic to those that are on the Navajo reservation. So he set up an organization to get supplies, and we've had donations from all over and in Utah, and he's been featured on a lot of shows and news and things like that. So we're really excited to have him. He's getting his master's degree at the University of Utah, got his bachelor's in nursing at the University of Utah. I have a son that just finished medical school at the University of New Mexico. He is leaving to go, and got married, and he's leaving to go to Maryland in a couple of weeks. Not Maryland, Maine, to do his residency. He was on an Indian Health Scholarship, and so he will go back to the reservation and work for 3 years as a payback for the money that he received. So our family has been affected by college. And I've just loved what the example that they are to me to help those that are in need, and especially our population. We have 105 students in Upward Bound here in Blanding, and 90% are Navajo and Native Americans. Some of them, of course, have mixed blood, but I love them. They are awesome. They are my kids. Talk about a family. At the end of the summer when we have our program, there's lots of tears shed because they are just so grateful, and the parents are very grateful for what Upward Bound has done for them. And Upward Bound has been on our campus. Jamie has been very involved, and I just want to shout out to Jamie and Rachel. Thank you for always, I've been doing this for 7 years, but I feel like I learned something new all the time. And so it's been really fun. I've got some really good staff members, Jessica and Shania, that are from Monument Valley, and Brenda, and they are all just awesome. They've got some good ideas, and we're going to run with those ideas this year, and just really grateful to be able to serve you guys. So that's a little bit about me. I love Upward Bound. I love TRIO. I love my job, and I love my students.
Teresa, thanks so much for introducing yourselves, for sharing a little bit about you. Samantha and Teresa, both welcome to the board. We're very excited to have your service in Utah TRIO.
I want to echo Anthony's comments too. I am very, very excited for the direction that we're headed with our state leadership in the coming terms. So I appreciate you all being flexible too in terms of your introductions today as well. That I think is all we have planned for today. I think we've beat the clock a little bit too, so you get a little time back in your lives today. I hope the presentations we've seen today have been meaningful for you. I know they have for me. I've learned a good amount too, and taken a few notes as well as we keep moving forward. Tomorrow we have a keynote first thing in the morning from Kyle Reyes, who is our Vice President of Student Affairs at UVU and got his start in his career in TRIO and Gear Up programs. So we hope you tune in for that. Some of you know Kyle, and and know that he is a longtime friend and family to Utah Aspire too. So with that, we will check out for the day, and then the planning committee that we've been working with too, we'll plan on reconvening back here, same time, same channel at 1 o'clock to talk through and finish our conversation from yesterday afternoon following all of the town hall information. So we'll see some of you back here at 1 o'clock, and the rest of you, I hope you have a great day. Go stand in the sun, and we'll see you tomorrow.